On this episode of the Easy Prey podcast, I talk with Craig MacAlpine and Joe Witts about ransomware and beyond. Craig is founder and CEO of Expert Insights and a passionate security innovator with over 20 years experience in information security and product management, previously founding email security company EPA Cloud. Joel is a senior content editor at Expert Insights, covering a multitude of areas, including cybersecurity. Craig and Joel, I really appreciate you coming on the Easy Prey podcast and talking about what you guys do and talking today about ransomware and beyond. I always have fun talking with people who have been in the IT industry for many years, and we can have some fun conversations going back to old Cisco router numbers and things like that, except for Joel. Joel's...
yeah.
We've probably had routers older than Joel, unfortunately, and hopefully they're still not in place.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Great to have you on. So one of the things is like ransomware is kind of this, for a lot of people, a very nebulous thing. They hear the news stories about school districts becoming victims of ransomware in cities and healthcare organizations. I think a lot of people aren't really kind of clear as to what ransomware is, how do you get it, and how do you deal with it? So let's kind of walk through from kind of beginning to end of ransomware. So kind of what is ransomware?
So I think ransomware, as in a simple sentence explanation, it's a type of malware that gets installed on your machines, and it essentially locks all of your files, so you can't access them. It spreads often very quickly through your computer and then to all the other computers in your business, and you might suddenly find that you can't access crucial programs and files that you need to run as normal. And then often you'll get a message from the cyber criminals or attackers that have distributed this ransomware that says, you need to pay us, or we're going to delete your data, or maybe leak your sensitive data. And then suddenly you're looking at a loss of productivity. You can't carry on working as normal because you can't access your systems. A loss of credibility with your customers because suddenly you've jeopardized their data. And obviously the financial implication is that you might have to pay these guys, or should you pay them? What's the best practice there? So it causes a lot of fear and uncertainty, and it's really quite an insidious attack in that it really leaves you feeling like you've got nowhere to go if you haven't got any systems in place to stop it.
And I assume for individuals, it's kind of that the fear of, well, now I've lost access to my family's photo album for the last 20 years. All those memories are now encrypted. All my personal finances are encrypted. All the records of things that I find important are now encrypted, and I don't have access to them. I can see that how it would be a real devastating experience. And I know from with a lot of scams, there's this level of emotion and urgency in the ransom component of it. If you don't pay this amount of money in this amount of time,
a lot of them, a lot of attacks really play on that fear. I mean, it's scary enough to imagine, not being able to do your job, or like you say, access all your data essentially. But then often you get this message, and there's normally a timer, a countdown to destruction or something, and it really puts that you need to pay us today, in the next 2 hours, in the next hour, in the next 30 minutes, or whatever. So it really, and then a lot of individuals don't know necessarily what the best practice is to do, because a lot of the times you see these messages pop up and you maybe ignore them. You think, they don't really, my system's not really being compromised. It's quite a common spam message. But then if you get hit by a real ransomware attack, what do you do in that situation? Especially for individuals, but small businesses as well often don't have the right systems in place. They might not know what to do. A lot of businesses don't expect to get hit by ransomware attacks, but they are spreading to small businesses much more commonly. It's a really big problem.
And it's not just, I assume it's not just small businesses that are being attacked. I mean, we talked earlier before the recording that Travelex became a victim of ransomware. And can you tell me more about do you guys know more about that experience or that event?
Yeah, so Travelex was hit just after New Year's Eve this year, or just gone New Year's Eve. So it affected their business operations. So Travelex have hundreds of branches where at airports and other locations where you can actually do your foreign currency exchange. And they also have a white labeled service where they run foreign currency exchange on behalf of other institutions. And it effectively closed their operations closed down for at least a week while they had to go to a manual basis. And they've now taken, in sterling terms, a £25 million hit in terms of loss of business from that ransomware attack. So in dollars, you're looking at $32 million hit to their business. And that's now combined with the coronavirus and what else is happening, that is put their business into jeopardy with potential insolvency for that business to go down. So that shows how mission critical these issues can be for organizations. And that's a large organization. That's not a mom and pop shop. That's that's thousands of people's livelihoods at jeopardy over this incident 3 months ago.
Yeah, that's crazy that we'd have to. That it's not just. I don't want to say you hope it's only small businesses, but it is something that affects from small all the way up to really large businesses.
And there's I think the most common targets are sort of healthcare, education as well. There's been a lot of towns and cities. I think it was 22 towns in Texas.
Yeah, at least I'm sure.
Yeah. And increasingly it's MSPs as well that ransomware targeting, because obviously if you hit MSPs, you also have access to all of their clients. And the MSP aspect of it is something that's really growing.
So within the audience, do people understand what we mean by MSPs? Because it's really easy for us to start talking jargon, but do people know what an MSP is?
Yeah, by managed service provider, I mean someone who manages the IT security and other services as well, not just security of multiple clients. So if they're hit by ransomware attacks and that spreads to the client systems as well, or even if it just stops the clients from being able to access their systems, it can cause a chain of events that make it incredibly lucrative for cyber criminals to go after these groups. And they are really lucrative attacks as well. I think I was reading that the average ransom sum is increasing to, I think, over $40,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that those figures were reported by Coveware, which is a company that was set up specifically to help organizations pay the ransom to attackers, which I think just tells you just how, how big a threat this has got when you've now got businesses around the attack.
And I've definitely heard that there are entities where it's, oh no, we've hired someone to recover our data, and they don't know how the recovery is happening. It's, well, the company just pays the ransom and hopes that they unlock the data, which is really crazy.
I think the other side of the coin is in terms of the law enforcement side of it. I've been speaking to law professionals in the UK, and it's effectively an unwritten policy that if it's below sort of $35,000, they won't investigate it, and there isn't the resource to actually investigate a lot of these attacks. And that's actually, as a consumer or a business, that is very worrying. That it is effectively, you can be hit, you can be squeezed hard, you could lose your data. It's going to cost you a fair sum of money to get it back. And for the people actually perpetrating this, it's it's a free card.
Yeah.
They're not going to get caught. And they're typically, where are these people located? Are they in Ukraine? Are they in Russia? How do you actually get them and bring them to justice?
And there's a lot of conflicting advice as well as to whether businesses should actually pay the ransom, because obviously even if you pay it, there's no guarantee that the data is even recoverable or that they will unlock the data or anything like that. I mean, it really puts businesses in a really difficult situation. I've read conflicting advice as to whether you should pay it. I mean, it's easy for a security company to say don't pay it, but if you're a business and you need access to to your data and you need it as soon as possible. I mean, it's hard to say actually no, we won't pay it.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy when it's not your data that's at risk. It's easy to say, hey, look, if nobody were to pay the ransom, then these schemes wouldn't exist, because if people can't make money out of it, they're not going to do it. But when it comes to, well, that means I have to shut down my business. That means I have to go to a backup that I did a year ago. That means hundreds or thousands of people out of work. How do you justify that versus, well, we just hope that someone else doesn't fall victim to this also?
Yeah. And I think the attacks are getting, I've read that there's more sophistication in them as well. So whereas before ransomware was kind of, it's become more of a well-known issue, and businesses are putting more measures in place like backup, as we mentioned, to try and mitigate the risks from these threats. And attackers have been quite smart in that now it's not just we'll delete the data, but we might leak it. So suddenly there's data breaches that you're responsible for and people's information. So instead, because if you've got a data backup in place, you might think, I'm not going to pay it because if the data gets erased, I can recover it. But if it's suddenly your data is going to get leaked and, maybe your customers are going to be compromised because of you, and then that might put some fines under the latest data regulations, you might suddenly lose more because of that. So they're really working on smart ways to get businesses to pay and becoming more sophisticated in that sense.
Yeah, it's really playing on that fear that we talked about, that fear and emotion that we talked about earlier. It's like, well, if you aren't afraid of having to go through the hassle of restoring a backup, well, what about the lawsuits? What about the legal ramifications of a data breach? So let's take a step back and kind of like working from outside in. How do people actually get ransomware? And what are the steps kind of along the way that can prevent someone from getting ransomware?
So I think a common way for ransomware to start in organizations is through phishing attacks, which are quite difficult to stop for organizations. There are ways of doing it, but phishing attacks really work on two levels, in that they exploit sort of weaknesses in email security technologies, which Craig can talk more about the technical side of how, why phishing attacks are more difficult to stop. But they also still exploit that fear in people as well. So when you receive a phishing attack, it really exploits that uncertainty and makes you unsure of what to do. So phishing is a type of email which tries to trick a user into performing an action. So you might get an email saying, it could even be from your boss. I mean, CEO impersonation is a common type of phishing, but it'll basically ask you to perform an action like log into an account or download a file or, open a OneDrive attachment or something, which will then start the malware download, which often then is how ransomware spreads into an organization. So on the email side, Craig, I'll hand over to you about why phishing is, such a difficult thing to stop.
Yeah, okay. So within the phishing side, you've got different types. Typically, an organization will have a gateway protecting them, a secure email gateway that will sit on the outside of their email system. So whether they're using Office 365 or an on-premise server, but typically people are on hosted email now. And it will, the typical attack vector will be a sort of 4 or 5 lined email. It will come from maybe a Gmail account. So it's coming from a genuine email account to users within the organization, and it will spoof the CEO or the CFO's name.
So it'll kind of look like it's coming from their personal email account or something like that.
Yes, it's from their personal Gmail account, but it's coming from a genuine email account. There'll probably be no links within the email. So the actual gateway products, technically, they find it very hard to detect that. And all they can go on is, have they seen this email before from this email account? Typically, no. They haven't seen emails, it'll be a fresh Gmail account that will send it. And the other thing that they'll go on is the verbiage, the actual text within the email. Have they seen that text before? So if you've got a savvy phisher who's updating that content, it's really hard for the gateway systems to pick that up. That person will then get into an email correspondence. So the recipient will get into an email correspondence with the sender, at which point they will either be enticed to log in to typically something like a secure online portal that they've got to log into, actually log into that and actually download that will cause a malware download, or they go to a web link that downloads something. That'll typically be the email will be the start of the actual phish, but it might not be the method that the malware is downloaded, but it'll be the start of the conversation. And technically, a lot of the technologies that we look at will claim to stop this. And I think the reality is there's not one silver bullet that will stop it, for a company, to actually resolve that.
So what about, I'll get a little technical here. Maybe you can explain the products a little better than I can. So if you've got your secure email gateway monitoring for suspicious links and things like that, or the content of emails, do additional products of kind of the content firewalls help mitigate Or does that play a role in there as well? Something that prevents you from going to known sites that are involved in compromises?
Yeah. Okay. So in the business world, if you look at the business world rather than consumer, the dominant email platform now is Office 365. So certainly in the States, it's the number one email platform that people will use. And companies will typically deploy that without any additional products. So they'll use the default Microsoft filtering that comes with Office 365. The second platform that people will use is G Suite, Google G Suite. That will be the second email platform. The third most popular email platform will be on-premise Exchange. Mm-hmm. So someone that's on Office 365, they typically won't be using a third-party gateway product. They won't be using additional technology. They'll be relying on Microsoft's inbuilt technology. And we find that very weak. Microsoft does a good job at stopping general day-to-day spam email, sort of the run-of-the-mill spam email, but it does a very poor job at actually detecting and stopping spoofed email. And I've seen numerous attacks where it's a spoofed email from a Microsoft login page. So a Office 365 user receives an email that is linking to a fake Office 365 login. So you've got an issue that the default technology, the lowest, the cheapest or the lowest cost denominator solutions aren't working. Then people that have been running Exchange on premise have had these issues before in terms and have become used to running a gateway product. Some companies that have moved to Office 365 have retained their gateway product. So that could be, in the SMB market, Proofpoint Essentials has over 100,000 organizations using it. There's about 30 different secure email gateway providers in the market. And those products generally do a good job at stopping spam and phishing email. They'll stop typically 99% of threats will get stopped by those products. Mm-hmm. But they'll still let the odd spam and phishing email through. Some of the products will have link rewriting included in them. So when you receive an email and you actually click on a link in the email, the link will have been rewritten. So at the actual point of clicking on it, it will be scanned or it will be passed through a database of known compromised websites. Mm-hmm. That technology works well where if I'm sending you an email of a compromised site that's already been detected, the danger is that sort of 0 hour. So if it's a brand new website, there can be a delay of 2 hours, 4 hours, 12 hours from when that email from that website goes live to actually being detected as a malware site.
So that's kind of if the scam's been around for a while, you're safe. But if you're patient zero, you really don't have much protection.
So to resolve this, the way I look at it is a belt and braces approach. So the secure email gateway is a sort of legacy technology. Probably the first companies offering it would have been companies like Message Labs, which is now Semantic, back in 2002, 2001. So these technologies have been around. And they typically do a good job. They're doing more than just email filtering. There may be some DLP and other things that they'll be doing around that. The newer technologies, one of the issues with a SEG or secure email gateway, it's sitting at the boundary. So it's sitting outside of your email system. A big issue with things like Office 365 now is email compromise, business email compromise, where a user's account gets hacked. So someone can get remote access to a user's email account, and they will do something like they'll log into that account and set up a forwarder rule. So they'll forward email from that account to an external account and maybe move emails into a red folder. So the user's not even aware of what's actually going on in their email account. And we see that as a big threat with things like Office 365 and G Suite as people move to hosted. So the problem with the gateway solutions is they're sitting outside of your email platform. They're not actually sitting within your email platform seeing what's going on. So the newer form of technology called post-delivery protection. So these are systems that actually sit within your hosted email environment. And examples of those are companies like Ironscales, Avanan, Agari, Great Horn. So there's a growing number of newer companies, sort of new wave companies, new wave email security companies, where it's actually sitting within your email platform and it's looking for compromised accounts. It's looking for phishing emails coming from a genuine internal account, emailing someone else within your business. And another thing that we see often is these compromised email accounts are quite typically used by phishers. So the idea is that you compromise an email account and you use that genuine email account to go phishing with, because that account may be on an allow list. It'll have a good domain reputation. So to stop that, companies need to look at, I would recommend any company on Office 365 or G Suite get 2FA or MFA installed, get two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication installed. You're just looking for trouble if you haven't installed that. You should be restricting access to your users' accounts, and typically the balance is around getting that balance between ease of use and security. I think that's the age-old issue.
So let's take a step for those that aren't aware of what multi-factor authentication is, and often called two-factor authentication. We see it a lot on our bank accounts where you log in and your bank sends you an SMS message that says, hey, you need to enter the code 123456 before you can log into your bank account. Just trying to prove that.
Yeah. So it could be a message to your cell phone, or it could actually be an app that's installed on your phone. Yep. So on your iPhone or Android device, you've got, Google have their own app, Microsoft have an app, and it's just it'll give you a one-time code.
Yep.
In Microsoft's example, they'll give you a one-time code that you type in, or it'll actually pop up with a notification to go, hey, is this a genuine request? Approve it or deny it. And it'll actually, that'll be the second level to log in. And I would just encourage businesses, if you're an IT manager, an IT professional, you're asking for trouble not to install that. And I think at a policy level, it's just something, it's good hygiene. We should be practicing it. We're all washing our hands now with COVID. So I think MFA and 2FA should just fall into that good hygiene. We should all be following it. It should just, it's best practice. Just do it. Just get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked about a number of ways that ransomware can get in and how you can get impacted. And we've talked about at what points you can protect against it. Obviously, there's internal policies of telling people don't click on links. As we discussed, the reporting on that is out as the effectiveness. Some people report that it's highly effective. Other people report that, basically if someone gets an email from what looks like their boss, they're not even going to think twice about clicking on a link.
Yeah, I think one of the technologies that we've been really impressed with is isolation. So it's a case of, okay, let's assume that the email does come in. It bypasses all this fantastic technology that you've got, and then the user actually clicks on a link. In the past, a lot of companies would have gone for web filtering, so proxy-based web filtering or DNS web filtering, where you're actually doing is it a good website, is it a bad website, allow it and deny. And the problem with these technologies is you still have this 0-hour element. And we've been really, in our testing, really impressed with browser isolation. And I think this is the future for where web traffic filtering is going. So what isolation is, at the point that you actually click on a link and go to a website, that website is not connecting to your PC or to your Mac. You're getting a rendered view of what is on that third-party website. So if there's any malware that is hosted on that third-party website, and if you think about it, the majority of malware comes through the web. So email is your gateway to actually connect with someone, but it will come through the web. It will be a web download that will actually infect your PC. And isolation is a great way of you being able to browse the web securely. So nothing's actually been rendered on your machine. There's a growing body of companies that provide isolation, and I think we'll start to see a lot of acquisition in this area where you've got companies that have got an isolation product being acquired by the web filtering companies, because it's a real gap with web filtering companies. And the issue with isolation is cost. To actually do that. So in the conversations that we have, we see the larger organizations, the enterprises, they can afford it. They can justify it. They can swallow that high cost per user to get it installed. For the smaller companies, they're going, well, we're doing web filtering. We've got this low cost option. Why do we need to do it? And I think it's one of those solutions that will become de facto, but it might take 3 to 5 years for it to become a sort of industry-wide solution that people use.
Do you foresee that coming out at some point to consumers at home as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Through, maybe Google will offer that as a service, let's say.
Maybe. Well, that's always the question. Will someone like Google actually acquire one of these vendors and spin it up wholesale? Because they've certainly got the data center capacity to do it.
Yeah, they've got the computing power to handle that. And they've got the scale and they can provide that to users. They've already got Google Chrome.
So why not do it? I'd never thought about that for the consumer market, but I think you're right. I think it will be some of the large players in the market, the Microsofts, Amazons, Googles that do bring this to the consumer market. And I think it's going to take one of the larger players with this scale to be able to deliver it.
I spoke to a couple of the co-founders of one of the large isolation vendors at the moment. And I asked them that question: do you see this coming, to consumers? And I'm working for, in general security technologies. And I think the impression I got was they thought it would, but not for a while yet.
Yeah.
Like the technology's trickled down essentially, and that it's going to take a while for what's really now, a lot of it is still very enterprise focused. To get down to like the home user level is going to be a long process.
It's kind of like the Tesla model of doing business. We're gonna learn on somebody else's dime, and then as we perfect the technology, we can bring it closer and closer to the consumer and closer to the entry level market, and let those that have deep pockets fund the learning process of it.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually very similar to the answer they gave me. That we're still troubleshooting with these big organizations that can afford to sort of have those growing pains. Whereas like when it gets down to the smaller level, it's like you need it to just work essentially.
Yeah. My understanding is the US government at the moment is trialing it with 2 different vendors for 25,000 users. On vendor A, they've got 25,000 users, and on vendor B, they've got 25,000. And once they've done that selection process, what I understand is they'll then pick one of those 2 vendors to deploy it across the board federally. They'll deploy that. So that'll be a very large deployment for that.
There'll be some great learning that will come as a result of that experiment.
Yeah, but this gets to the point of even the video that you're watching isn't actually, it's rendered. Everything is, if you go to a PDF document, an Excel spreadsheet, a Word document, none of it is actually being downloaded to your machine. It's a rendered version that you're actually viewing. So things like macros, in an Excel file, arguably, if you move to that vision, nothing's actually touching the endpoint, the actual user's machine. You're actually, you're securely protecting that user's machine from anything malicious on the internet. It's just a window to the internet that they're actually seeing.
This kind of reminds me of, 20, 25 years ago, you had terminals that really had no computing power. It was just a rendered image. It was just a monitor and a keyboard. There wasn't any computing power, and it sounds like we're cycling back to that being what we're going to be living with. Interesting.
But you need immense for this technology to work. You do need very good bandwidth for it to actually work. The actual connection to the user has to be, a high bandwidth connection. So a lot of it's, we're relying on fiber connections or ADS, good, strong connectivity to the user.
Gotcha.
So maybe with not Tesla, but with Musk's satellites that are going up, maybe that'll all come in the future once we get mobile internet through the thousands of satellites. Maybe that'll be the next thing.
It's the promise of 5G. So let's say someone does become a victim of ransomware. Their computer's been locked. What are their options? We talked about, you can pay the ransom.
Get some Bitcoin.
And hopefully you don't.
And I think with the way the markets are crashing, it's going to be cheaper to, you need less Bitcoin today than you did last week. So
Maybe that'll be hey, sure, you want 15 Bitcoin? That's only $10. Sure, have it.
Yeah, no longer $20,000 a Bitcoin. I think it's you got to, in all honesty, I think you're relying on your backup strategy ultimately to recover. How have you been backing up your data? What are your point recoveries that you've got? Are you keeping a 30-day retention? Is it a 90-day retention? Your different backup points on that. And as people move to the cloud, it's an interesting one. Are people ensuring good backup hygiene? Back in the day, you'd have had your file server on premise. You'd have been doing your nightly your tape backups nightly, coalescing that into a weekly and a monthly backup, and those had all been shipped off to a vault, to a fire safe off-site somewhere. As we move, we've moved to this online world, and people are using off-site storage. How good are their backup strategies for that? And I think that's what's been shown up with a lot of these cases. People haven't gone for the cheaper or lower cost solution. We've saved money. We've been through a recession. Let's cut costs. And I think it's that balancing act people have got to look at to get your data back.
Yeah, I know that having worked for a small business previously, backups are kind of a quirky, even on the consumer level, backups are a quirky thing. And
it's a tax. It's effectively a tax to a user. It's a cost. I've got my data. Why do I need to pay extra to keep another copy of it?
And that's the challenge. It's, you get people that are like, okay, well, I'll just attach an extra hard drive to my computer and I'll copy the files over once a week. Well, if you have ransomware, most likely it's going to encrypt your drive that's attached to your computer anyway. And realistically, if it's not automated, yeah, maybe for a couple weeks you'll be good about dragging your files over. But realistically, if it's not automated, it's not going to happen. And I'm not sure, is ransomware also impacting network attached storage? I mean, I assume that if it's relatively just acting as a drive that's connected via Ethernet rather than a USB-C cable, that its network attached storage is probably just as at risk to malware or to ransomware.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to claim to have knowledge in this area. My domain knowledge is around email and web, so rather than the attached storage side. So I don't want to start professing on discussing subjects where I'm wrong.
Well, I guess the answer then is you as the user, if you think that you're getting a protected device, you need to find out whether you really are or not, and really ask those questions of your vendor. In the case that if my computer gets malware, is my NAS protected from that? And if the answer is no, then you really, in theory, you really don't have you might have a quote unquote backup in case your computer dies. In the world of ransomware, if your NAS gets compromised, then you lose that data.
I think if you look at how businesses buy or consume IT, there's two methods that businesses will consume. So a smaller business will typically go through an MSP. So they'll, if let's say you're an insurance broker, you employ 15 people, you'll have a local company that is supporting your IT, and you're really relying heavily on that MSP to guide you. So I think within the industry, there's a responsibility of MSPs to actually have that honest conversation with their customer, to actually advise them on best practice and implement that, while also ensuring that the MSP, are following best practice and they aren't the attack vector. As you move into slightly larger businesses that can then afford to have IT professionals in-house, so an IT manager, it then becomes beholden on that IT manager to get this implemented. And I think one of the issues that you've got that I've alluded to earlier is that person is a jack of all trades. They're covering maybe the phone systems. If you've got a PBX, a VoIP system, they've got responsibility for PC updates, for, is the on-site file server still working, and in ensuring these practices. And I do wonder for how many of those people, they're like, yeah, I know I've got to do it, but I've got another 20 more important jobs I've got to get done. And that prioritization argument that goes on, and sort of, if it ain't broken, I need to fix it today.
Yep. I mean, I've definitely been in that position where I was responsible for the phone system, the mail server, the websites, desktop support. And it does become that play of, okay, what the boss telling me he wants to go this direction, and I'm trying to fight and wrestle. Like, no, security really does need to be a higher priority. There is that battle that can go on within a company, because the owners are looking at, well, is this going to make me money?
Yeah, they're there for a profit.
They're there for a profit, and it's hard to have that conversation of like, well, no, this is not going to make you money. It's insurance. It's going to hopefully prevent you from losing money. It's, can you afford your business to be down for a week or a month, or it may only be a couple of days, but can you afford your business to be non-operational for that period of time? Or if you're a home user, can you afford to be without your computer at home for an extended period of time?
Absolutely. How do you think ransomware is going to play out? Do you think it's one of these things technologically, it will become a gap that's closed? Because I look at the NHS in the UK, and a lot of the ransomware that's happened in the UK has been because of old systems that haven't been patched or updated. It's been vulnerabilities in systems that haven't been closed. So do you think it's one of the, it's a problem that will move away as technology catches up?
I think it'll probably be a similar experience to dealing with spam, in that there can be, over time, there'll be more and more advanced automated systems that will block the majority of it, the vast majority of it, 99% of it. But there's still going to be those carefully crafted, things that happen within that 0 hour that are just going to be really, really hard to catch. So I think it will become less and less frequent, but I don't know that it's just like spam. I don't know if it's something that's going to ever entirely go away.
I suppose there's two sides to the coin here. There's the one that you've got the technological gap. So we try and plug it with, extra services. You've also got the human elements, the training elements. And I guess in any system, that's always going to be the weak point as an attack vector. It just needs one mistake, one error.
Yeah, and they kind of talk about it with terrorism. The terrorists only have to get it right once. The people that are protecting against it have to get it right 100% of the time. And I think it's going to be that sort of same way. There's always going to be that risk because the humans are always involved. We're going to act out of emotion. We're going to act out of fear. We're going to make a mistake. And so those things are still going to happen regardless. And I mean, and how many machines out there are still running Windows XP? Here we are, or even Windows 7. It's,
Windows 7, yeah. So, I was in the doctor's surgery, and about 6 weeks ago, and Windows 7 device. So
I think in terms of, statistically, the number of successful ransomware attacks is kind of not plateaued, but it's dropping. And I think it's because organizations in particular are sort of looking at the reports that are coming out and trying to implement best practices as quickly as possible and getting those systems in place.
Yeah. So
I think in terms of attacks, we might see it drop from a peak that it's been in the last couple of years. But alongside that, there's also been increased sophistication in the attacks. Like we say, going after MSPs and going after more vulnerable, SMBs and even individuals, where organizations are doing, maybe a bit more research into and making those phishing attacks a bit more credible, so that because the attacks are so successful, even though the defenses are getting better, the attackers are going to work against that, because this is something that's been proven to work very effectively. I think there's been a real increase in ransomware as a service, where attackers can go onto the dark web, they can purchase this ransomware, and even if it's stuff that's been cracked, and as a user you might see the message and think, oh god, but actually you might be able to recover your data.
That's actually that actually is a really good point. There are a lot of products out there that if you've been a victim of older ransomware, that the decryption people have reverse engineered the decryption keys, and you might actually be able to get your data back using a free data recovery service. But a lot of people, I'm not familiar with which ones they are, so be careful about what you're looking for, because you're probably as likely to be a victim of ransomware trying to find your ransomware decryption key. But
do a lot of research if you've been hit and you're looking. But it's definitely the case that, but because they really go hard on that element of fear, and with that countdown on there, and really pressing people to just pay it without doing anything else, it really the attacks can be very effective, even if they're technologically we're able to stop them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think it always comes down to, we're talking that when there's that fear and that there's emotion, there's the urgency, is you got to stop, take a deep breath, get other people involved before you take an action. It's just to make sure you've got multiple eyes looking at it. You've talked with a professional, whatever it is. If it's a tax scam, talk with your kids, talk with your parents. Talk to someone who can offer, who's once removed from it and is not going to be having that fear and emotion that you are.
Yes. I think definitely don't panic is good advice if you get hit by ransomware.
The good old line from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Don't panic.
big red letters, don't panic.
So is there a place that for people who want to learn more about how to protect their email systems, how can people get a hold of you guys, and what kind of services do you offer to help them?
So we've written a lot of content about ransomware in particular. We've got a long article about what technologies are in place, especially for SMBs, to protect themselves from ransomware. We've also published some really in-depth guides to the best email security solutions and their particular features in regards to stopping phishing, stopping ransomware. We've also got some articles on the best endpoint protection for SMBs. Craig, is there anything else you'd want to?
I suppose we've also done research on other sort of newer technologies. So I think one that's things like Slack, so as we move to more remote working, is Slack secure? How do you ensure Slack secure? Teams as well. So actually looking at other ways that people are, the communication's evolving, how we communicate is evolving, and how do we keep those channels secure?
Yep, and I'll make sure to link to those articles in the show notes. That way people can easily access that and not have to chase them down. If people want to follow you guys on social media and visit your website, can you provide those for us?
Yep, so on social media, on Twitter, we're at insights_expert. And
bit of a tongue twister, that one. Okay.
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn, just Expert Insights.
And the website's Expert Insights. And I think just quickly, just to get a bit of color about who, and I suppose this will come in at the beginning, but a bit of color about who I am. I set up an email security company back in 2003 and ran that business for, as founder for 10 years. And I sold that business in 2013. And I suppose where Expert Insights, we've not really dwelled on this, but where Expert Insights has come from is partly my own frustration. So I would say I'm a technical user wanting to know a bit geekily, what is the best solution to solve a problem? And the website was born out of a sort of frustration. I see so much marketing spin in our industry. I go along to the trade shows and you've got all these flashy stands. There's been millions spent on the marketing and everyone has got the solution to all your ills. And we are in an industry where it's a great industry. I love the security industry. I've been in it for over 20 years, but it is being consumed by marketing. And as a sort of a technical user, the website was born out of, I'm frustrated with this. I actually want to know what the best solutions are. I don't claim that everything on our website, we are we can give you that to the nth degree, but we are a resource for someone to narrow in on the right solution. So if you've got a problem and you're looking for a solution, we are one of the tools you can come to digest the information, to read about it, and make a considered decision on what's right for your business. That's what I see our role is in helping people in their journey to solve their problems.
I think we're really kindred spirits because that's really kind of been a very similar background behind what is myIPaddress.com, is that most of the resources out there about IP addresses, you have to be a network engineer to understand. They're not explaining things in terminology that end users understand. It's like, well, I just need to know what I need to do personally. I don't want to go get an electrical engineering degree. I don't want to get a computer science degree. Just explain this to me in English and stop the geek speak, And so it's a very, very kindred revelation.
How does it work?
I just want the simple. What is it and how does it work? Oh, it's like a phone number. Yeah. Okay, I get that.
And I think one of the pleasing things is our readership is global. We're an English language website. The largest visitor base that we have is obviously the US, but I'm blown away by the amount of readers that we're getting, Africa, Asia, Europe, and if we can make a difference in this, I know that we're doing some good from this. So
I think
see what happens.
I think that is an absolutely great note to close out on. Craig, Joel, thank you very much for coming on the Easy Pray podcast. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Easy Pray podcast. If you found this episode helpful, share it with someone you know and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Notes and a transcript of this episode with Craig and Joel can be found at easypray.com/11. Have you been a victim of a scam, and are you interested in sharing your story with the Easy Pray audience? Head over to easypray.com/mystory to learn more.